let's talk about different data structures. So we will cover basic data structures in Python. For example, string, list, tuple, set, dictionary, and we will compare those different data structures. So a string. A string is immutable data structure. So what it means is that I can create a string, but I cannot change the value during my program execution. The changing is actually creates a new string. So for example, if I concat two strings into one, this is not changing the string, this is actually creating a new string. Or for example, methods like replace or upper and so on, they kind of change the value, but actually the value is stored into a new variable or into a new slot in memory. So basically the original string remains the same. String is used to represent the text. So for example, if you want to get a name or contents of a file or whatever, then we use string. And how to create a string? So we assign hello into a variable s. So we use quotation marks. You can use single or double quotations or even triple quotation marks to represent a string. And if we want to loop over a string, then we get every symbol or character basically. So for char in S, we get the first symbol, then we get the second symbol and so on. So to loop over a string, we can get every symbol out of it. List. So list is a immutable ordered sequence of elements. So if we want to have a more than one value, then we can use a list. And list elements can be read and can be changed using index. So for example, my list, and I use index 2 here. So basically it's the third element because the first one is 0. The value of this is changed into 1. And indices start from 0. They are integers, so 0, 1, 2, and so on. And it's used when the order of the elements is important. So for example, if you want to, I don't know, store names, but the order of those names is important, then you probably want to use list. For example, list of guests, and you want to know who was the first guest and so on. How to create a list? You will use brackets, and you can assign or define different elements inside it. And if I want to loop over the elements, take one element and the second and third and so on, then I just can use for loop. Tuple. So tuple is basically similar to a list, but the difference is that it's immutable. You cannot change the tuple during the life cycle of the program. But you can still use the index to read elements. You cannot change those, but you can read. Indices start from 0, as with lists. And usually we want to use tuple if the changing of the elements is not required or even not allowed. And yeah, if function returns multiple values, then this is actually a tuple. Also, but with the tuple, you have to know that because it's immutable, you cannot add elements to it. So for example, if I have a list of guests, I wouldn't use tuple for it because probably new guests can arrive. But of course, if it's already fixed, then I can use tuple because it cannot change anymore. To create, we can use parentheses, and to loop over elements, we can use just regular for loop. A set. The set does not preserve order. So with lists and tuples, if you insert or if you create a list or set, then the order of the elements remains the same. But with set, the order is not preserved. So for example, if I create a set with elements 1, 2, 3, they actually are not stored in this order. They can be, but they should not. You cannot rely on that. So basically, if you have a set, you cannot, the Python doesn't guarantee you a order of those elements. And also elements cannot be accessed by index. So if I want to take the first element, I cannot do it with a set. I mean, there are workarounds for that, but basically you cannot access certain element inside a set. Elements can be only mutable objects, so I can use numbers, strings, and tuples inside a set. I cannot use lists, I cannot use sets inside a set, and so on. And because one idea behind the set is to remove duplicates or have unique elements, then we use set when we don't want to have duplicate elements. For example, if I want to know all the different names in my phone book, I would probably use a set, because if I add one name several times, it's only once represented in my set. So when you want to remove duplicates, then a set is a way to go. And you can use set theory operations with sets. But this means that you can easily get common elements, you can get intersection, you can get difference with two sets, and so on. This is a really nice way to, for example, if you have guests for your birthday and guests for your other, I don't know, next year's birthday, you can see who, for example, were in both birthdays, for example, who wasn't in both, or who, I don't know, different operations you can apply for those sets. This is covered in a set video or PyDoc also, so you can check more there. But this is a quick way to get different operations done. Set with sets you can do those. And to create a set, we can just use function set. I can of course add elements there, and if I want to loop over elements, then I can use for loop. Although I said that I cannot access elements by index, I can still loop over those. But the order of those elements I get with loop, this is not guaranteed. So I can get them in one order or in other order in next loop. But although actually implementation-wise the order is always the same. If I do several loops over the set, I still should get them in the same order, but it's not the order how I added them into my set. And if you want to get one element out of set, then you can probably use, for example, pop method, which also removes the element. But there is no other way to kind of see what's the first element of the set. Or you can turn set into a list and then see what's the first element. Dictionary. So dictionary contains key value pairs, and the order is actually preserved in Python, although it's not recommended to count on that. Starting from Python version 3.6, the order how you insert key value pairs into a dictionary is preserved, so that if you loop over a dictionary, you get them in the same order as you inserted them. But in most of the programming languages, the dictionary like data type or map usually does not preserve the order. And I would recommend that you would not count on the preserving order in Python. So treat the dictionary so that the order is not preserved. So if you really want to get a certain order, you have to do some extra work. But yeah, actually starting from 3.6, the order is preserved. The dictionary is used to represent mappings. So for example, I have a phone number, or I have a name, and then I have the phone number. So basically there's a key which points to a value. And keys are unique. So this is basically a set like data structure. I can, because it's a unique data structure, I can only use immutable objects there. Yes, numbers, strings, tuples. How to create the dictionary with curly braces? So basically this is an empty dictionary. I can loop over the keys. So if I just write for key in my dict, then it will loop over the keys. I will into key variable, I would get every key from the dictionary. If I want to loop over the values, then I can write a loop so that I use the values method from dictionary. I can also get key value pairs. So in this example, this my dict items gives me a tuple of key and value, and here I unpack it. I unpack it into a key and value variables. So inside this loop, I can use key and value both.